YouTube, welcome back to another video. So this is just a quick fire raw YouTube video in which I wanted to create here to share a mindset in which I've invoked recently. I say invoked recently. I've invoked this mindset over the past year and it's massively helped me stay on track when it comes to continuing to progress, develop and grow. And this YouTube video, like I said, it's just completely raw cut, unfiltered. This is literally like just a spontaneous YouTube video that I'm going to create right now based off of conversations in which I've had throughout the week. And like I say, advice in which I think can be extremely valuable and that can help a lot of people when it comes to ultimately staying on track and living a more meaningful, happy, fulfilled life. So as you know, we've had the first client shoot of the year recently, having just been and gone. Now, one conversation in which I've had with a lot of them lads recently is around setting the next goal. Now, some of the lads did come out of that shoot and they were pretty set on what it is they wanted to achieve next, whereas others, they had what I like to call the come down, the post-goal come down. Now, in bodybuilding, we called it the post-show blues. I've now changed that term to the post-goal come down. Now, what I mean by this is where you've had a goal that has been your sole focus for previous weeks, months, years, however long it is that you've been working towards that goal. So say, for example, you are competing in a competition prep. You have a 16-week prep. For that 16 weeks, your sole focus is that competition. You are living your day-to-day, working towards that goal, that one singular date. The problem with that is that for lads that don't necessarily have anything lined up after, or don't even really think about what it is they want to achieve after that goal, they have the post-show blues, the post-goal come down, where they essentially feel like they're in no man's land for weeks, potentially months after, where they're just spinning their wheels, they're not really working towards anything, they're not as consistent, they're not as motivated, they're not as disciplined because they haven't got that goalpost to work towards anymore. They haven't got that end date lined up in which, right, that is the pinnacle of everything in which I'm working towards right now. Now, what I've kind of noticed, and again, this isn't anything in which I've read in a book or watched in a YouTube video, no one's even told me this. This is just something in which I've completely made up my mind of on my own in regards to how I see elite performers, how they think, how they reach the top, etc. Now, I've said to all my photo shoot lads that kind of came into that following week's check-in, look, you need to line up the next goal. What is the next thing in which you're going to be working towards? Doesn't necessarily have to be another shoot. It just, you need a goal lined up. You need something in which you're working towards, right? I believe all men do, and I'll get to that later on. But I'm going to share a story right now, which one, the man I'm about to speak about, he doesn't know I'm actually going to come onto camera and say this, so I hope he doesn't mind me sharing. I'm sure he's got no issue whatsoever, but it's a story in which I've actually never really shared with anyone else. So the year was 2025 and we had just wrapped up the Marbella photo shoot. Everyone had left other than me, Ben Bray and the photographer Fit Visuals. I was on fucking cloud nine at that point. I could not believe what we had just pulled off as a brand. The first ever coaching brand to do a men's physique shoot in Marbella. Like I couldn't quite fathom it in my head what we had done. Flying out 35 lads to Marbella, all in phenomenal shape for a photo shoot. And to think we still had the drinks evening that weekend. We still had the beach club the following day. The weekend almost felt like it was just getting started. But we had just pulled off arguably the biggest photo shoot in which the industry's ever seen. Now, I was on cloud nine, like I say. I was ready to full send that night and get on the drinks and celebrate and just take it all in. Now, me and Ben stayed behind because we were helping Fit Visuals pack away his camera kit and clean up the gym. Ben's turned round to me, again, I'm on cloud nine at this point, and he says to me, so how do you think we could do it better next year? So what do you think we could do differently? How could we make this a better experience for the clients? And I was just taken back by that. I was taken back by that a fair bit. Because in my head, I'm thinking, fucking hell, are you not gonna, take in what we've just achieved right now? Are you not in the mood to celebrate? Are you not happy with what we've just done? And the truth is, I'm sure Ben was. I'm sure he was over the moon. I'm sure he was on cloud nine too. But he didn't get too caught up in that win. He didn't get too caught up in that moment. In his head, he's thinking, right, okay, what can I do the next time round? What can I do next in order to one-up myself, get better, have a bigger impact? And that's how these elite performers think, right? They don't get too caught up on the win or achieving the goal. They don't get too caught up in the moment. They're constantly thinking about the next thing that they can do in order to progress. Now, I'm sure deep down inside, they want to celebrate, they want to take in the moment, they want to reflect on what it is they've just achieved, but they don't, because they constantly want to get better. What they love is the progression. It's not necessarily hitting the goal. Now, you need goals in order to progress, right? You always need that goal lined up in order to get better and better and better. But what's important, and what I've kind of gathered from just having surrounded myself with these elite performers such as Ben, and kind of taking in how they react to these moments, is that you don't get too caught up in the win. You come away from it, you reflect on it a touch, but then ultimately you then relocate the goalpost of what it is you're going to do next time in order to get better. So that way you avoid the post-goal come down, the post-show blues. You avoid that transitional period of no man's land where, because you haven't got the next goal lined up yet, you're just spinning your wheels. You're doing absolutely nothing. You feel so demotivated. You feel so derailed. You feel like you're just dragging your feet along the floor. Because the exact same thing happened at the previous April shoot as well. I remember we were meeting the lads in the cafe down the road in order to grab some food with them. They were already there. Me and Ben were the last to leave Bailey's studio. Prior to me even walking out the door, he's turned around and gone, right, so what do you think the overall structure should be for the lifting workshop tomorrow? You know, how do you think we should run it? What do you think we should do? Do you think we should split the lads off into 2 groups, or have them all in one, take them round each and every exercise singularly? Or do we just split them off into groups and take 2 groups each? That's literally what he said to me as we were leaving the studio. Again, I was buzzing off of the shoot. That's the most amount of lads I've ever had on a photo shoot. I was super happy of how each and every one of them came in. But that was my quick reminder that snapped me back into it of, okay, right, yeah, let's not get too caught up on that win there. Let's think about what we can do next time in order to progress and get better. And like I say, that's how these elite performers think. They don't get too caught up in the moment. They don't get too caught up in the wins. They simply just set the next goal. They're constantly thinking about what they can do better next time, how they can get better, how they can have bigger impact. And that is why I think these elite performers reach the level in which they do in whatever industry in which they're in. And again, this isn't something which I've read in a book. This isn't something which I've seen on YouTube or anything. This is just my own sort of perspective on how these guys think, how these top 1% guys think. They're never getting too caught up in the win. They're never getting too caught up in having just achieved the goal or hit a benchmark or whatever it may be. They just set the next goal and continue working towards that in order to continue bettering themselves. And yeah, I think that partly comes down to them constantly wanting to win and getting better, but I think it also comes down to them being in love with getting better, but as well as that, to probably avoid that post-show blue period where you may spend a little bit of time just spinning your wheels, not really doing anything, dragging your feet along the floor because you haven't got the next goal lined up yet. Because trust me, I've fallen into that trap. I've fallen into that trap many times, especially in pretty much all of my bodybuilding preps, where my life has been dedicated towards that one date, that one goal. The minute that's been and gone, it's like, oh, what now? What's my purpose? What am I working towards? And the truth is that I well and truly believe that as men, we need something to work towards. We need something in order to get us out of bed in the morning, have us moving with purpose, giving us fulfillment day to day. We need that something to work towards. And if you don't have that, you're playing a very fucking dangerous game, because as men, we have this innate desire to want to conquer, to want to compete against other men, to want to get better at something, to want to be the best at something. Every man has that desire within them. So if you're not working towards anything, that's when it starts to become dangerous. That's when you're playing a very dangerous game, because that's when you'll really lack that fulfillment day to day. That's when you'll lack that purpose in life. That's when you won't want to get up out of bed in the morning. You won't want to hit the gym. You won't want to stick to your diet. You won't want to work hard day to day. And trust me, I know this. I know this within myself now that I need something to work towards. Like I say, I believe we all do. I've just come off the back of High Rocks Cardiff, and on the drive home, I'm not going to add in any spoiler alerts because this will come out prior to the High Rocks Cardiff weekend vlog, but I hit 2 PBs in that weekend, and one of them times I didn't think I was capable of achieving with where I'm at right now in regards to being a hybrid athlete, but I managed to get a very good time in one of those races, and I was on cloud 9 on that drive home from Cardiff back to Kent, and I very quickly snapped out of it, humbled myself, and I was like, no, but what's the next goal? What are we working towards now, Finn? And that is going back into a dieting phase for a photo shoot in order to get absolutely peeled for Marbella. And that is the next goal for me. And I've told a few people that, all right, I'm coming straight off the back of High Rocks Cardiff, going back into a photo shoot prep. Yes, I'll still be doing my runs and my functional work, whilst also resistance training, but I'll just be dieting into Marbella now and probably book my own photo shoot in prior. And I had a few people that were like, well, you don't slow down. You know, you need to breathe. You need to maybe just give yourself a little bit of a break. No, I don't need to give myself a break, because if I gave myself a break, trust me, it would be manic fucking depression if I didn't have anything to work towards, and that's the fucking truth. And that's the reality for most men as well. Funny, because I was watching a Tyson Fury documentary the other day, the At Home with the Furies documentary. I'm watching season 2. Watched the first season, thought it was really, really good. I'm currently watching the second season. That's my Netflix viewing in my downtime in the evenings right now. Now, in the second series, Tyson is retired. We all know by now that he's come out of retirement, but you can tell that he's not quite there. He's suffering mentally because he has nothing to wake up for anymore. Where he's not fighting, he feels like he doesn't have any purpose in day-to-day life. He's not getting as much fulfillment out of life because he's not fighting. He hasn't got that next fight lined up, and you can tell that that's taking a huge hit on him mentally. And it's interesting because I've seen studies as well of guys who take early retirement, I think before the age of 50, and how they all go into a real mental health battle afterwards because they have nothing to work towards anymore. They have nothing to get better at. They have nothing to progress at. I'm telling you now, as a man, you need a goal to work towards. You need something lined up in the calendar in which you're working towards. And once you've achieved that, then guess what? You need to perform again. You need to set the next goal. And for those of you that may be watching this and they're like, well, you know, that's a bit extreme, isn't it? You know, can't you just be content? Can't you just be happy? Okay, potentially some men can. Okay, potentially some men can. That's absolutely fine. But if that is you, then I would suggest you unsubscribe from this channel, because this is not what this channel's about. This channel is about setting the standard for high performing men. And if you are a high performing man, or you want to be a high performing man, and you want to be in these top 1% of men, then you constantly need to be aiming to get better. And from what I've gathered so far with having hung around with elite performers, is that they don't get too caught up on the wins. They don't get too caught up on achieving the goal. Once they've boxed off a goal, once they've put that tick next to it, it's right, okay, what can I do next? What can I achieve next? And I think personally that's a pretty good way to live your life, because if you're constantly chasing something, if you're constantly working towards something, if you have that thing that's getting you out of bed, that's having you move with purpose day to day, that gives you fulfillment, that gets you working hard, that gets you pushing yourself harder than what you did last time, and that's leading to happiness, that's leading to your progression, your growth as a man, then why is that such a bad thing? It's not. If anything, that is the way in which you want to live your life. That is going to lead to a much happier, fulfilled life. That's just my take on it. But anyway, that's everything from this YouTube video. Like, share, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff, and I'll see you in the next one.